I'm Desiree Fuentes here with Uncatechized Catholic, and I have the pleasure of speaking with three wonderful people with the Heart of a Servant project today. I have Rob and Victoria and Daniel all here. What do you find most helpful, most beneficial, most rewarding in what you do and how it reaches the Catholic audience and honestly audiences worldwide?
I think seeing someone be transformed in a short amount of time after watching something. I think I first really, I think about it now and I'm actually getting chills. I taught 8th grade CCD. This is like over 20 years ago. And I would always incorporate, this is before pre-spirit juice, I would incorporate videos into every lesson. And one of the lessons, it was like kind of like the new year and stuff. And I played the music video for Hurt by Johnny Cash. And there was one boy in there, I called him the philosopher. He sat there. If you've ever seen the music video for Hurt, it's a very, very powerful. Johnny Cash used right before he died. It was the last video he did, and he was impacted. And you're talking to 12 years old for 8th grade, really impacted. He wanted to watch it like 3-4 times, and I took a step back. I'm like, there is massive power in what you can do in a few minutes storytelling, and also in a 90-minute too. So seeing people's lives being able to, whether it's a seed that just starts something, or it's really the catalyst that pushes them over the edge. And I think as Catholics and as Christians, we have a responsibility to do that for the good, for God's glory. And so for me, that's kind of the motivation and what I find most satisfying about working in this field.
I love that. I fully agree with you, actually. I think there's something special about the essence or the what it isness of storytelling via video production or music or things kind of in that more artistic nature that have this special and profound, impactful way to touch people. Like some people can kind of knock the internet or TV or whatever, and they're like, I like books, I like written text, and it's like, they're fantastic, they
Books
are
good.
But there's just like something so immersive about a really, really good movie or music video or what have you. So I like that answer a lot. Thank you for sharing that. Sure. All right, Victoria. So I see that you work a lot. You do a lot of communications work within the church. Somewhat of a side question. What specifically does that work entail?
So I was the director of communications for a Catholic organization for years, and have been in Catholic media for quite a while. And so it varies. You know, I'm the producer of this film. I also work in business development for Spirit Juice Studios now, and I think even going to the Catholic Media Conference, it shows a lot of all the different ways that we're communicating. But right now, film is my focus, and being able to tell stories like this, and to tell the story of Father Flanagan, who is so well known for so many things, and he was very Catholic. He had the heart of a priest, and that was very important to him.
That's awesome. Okay, so with that sort of a primer there, what are your thoughts or feelings on harnessing more of the communications skills and powers and abilities in order to evangelize the church and the world broadly? Personally, I think I see a lot of opportunities where, you know, if somebody could just make this or disseminate that, it could touch so many people. So what are your thoughts? Where do you go with that?
I think that the work that we do in media can be so helpful, especially in that primary contact, right? In reaching out to somebody, and maybe they've been curious about the church for a while, or have this desire for God and aren't sure how to express that. And media can be really, really good for capturing people's interests and sparking those questions and conversations. And too, evangelization is so often, it's a one-on-one thing, right? And it happens in our parishes, and it happens in our families, and it happens in our day-to-day lives. And so I think it's both and, right? Is that we're this really incarnational people, and so the media is very important and can be incredibly powerful, as Rob was saying. And also that, okay, then we bring it human to human.
That's awesome. I love that answer. All right, Daniel. So I was curious what you think, as somebody who's worked behind the scenes on this film. What do you think is the thing that this film teaches the best? And what do you think might be the best thing that an audience member could learn if they're not the same things?
What it teaches? Yeah, there are countless little nuggets of wisdom in Father Flanagan's life, in his journals, and in his prayers, and in the speeches, the grand speeches he did around the world. And something that Rob mentioned earlier that's just been kind of brewing in my mind has been essentially care and love for the person who's in front of you. And it's a really simple idea, but it is something that Father Flanagan profoundly did and took to the depths of his soul in prayer. And how can I do that better? And he was never content with like, oh yeah, I treated that person okay. Yeah, I paid for the loaf of bread and it was like, hi, yeah, see ya. Like every interaction, every little opportunity he had to love or care or any possible way he could improve the situation he was in, he took it. And he was that kind of tenacity is, I think, the biggest takeaway, I hope, from the film. I hope that comes across. And that's definitely something that's impacted me throughout the filmmaking process, throughout looking into his life and his legacy. His tenacity to do the most gentle things, right? These very spiritual interactions he had with every single person. And then, sorry, your other question was?
If it's not the same thing, what do you think is the best thing that somebody might learn from watching the film?
I think I hope that's something that people learn from the film. Another thing, just to throw it in there, that I think is hopefully something that comes across in the film is Father Flanagan was a leader. It was obvious from the work that he did that he was a leader. He spearheaded operations. Like he started Boys Town. He was a pioneer, but he was also deeply a follower. He was always looking for direction. He was always looking for like, okay, what I have this innate God-given desire to help, to go, and he just was asking God like, show me where to go. Tell me where to go. So hopefully it comes across again that in his leadership was this not a man who just decided where to go and say to heck with it, I just say this and so that's how it is, but someone who was a leader through serving. That servant leadership obviously is why it's part of the title of the film, and that's something that I absolutely need to be reminded of every day, and that's something that Father Flanagan has embodied throughout his entire life, that we absolutely can look to him for inspiration in that.
That's beautiful. Something I hear Pope Francis coming back to all the time is remembering to always smell the people and be close to them and to not have that experience of, I'll throw some money at this person who needs some bread or these kids who need some jackets or whatever, but to actually have that intrapersonal contact with people and to maintain that awareness that, somebody with a lot of money or a lot of connections can do a really big thing, but also just one person making one very special connection with another can move mountains, and it can be just as impactful, if not more. So Daniel, Victoria, Rob, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your thoughtful answers.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Desiree Cifuentes, online as Uncatechized Catholic, and I'm here today with Deacon Omar. How are you, Deacon?
Well, thanks.
Awesome. I have some questions for you today, obviously, about the film. What is something that you find most incredible about Boys Town?
Well, it's a testament to the prayer life of a single man, really. Boys Town is the result of his fidelity to the Lord and his following what the Lord called him to do, even when it was most difficult, and he faced so many challenges, both in the culture and really just personal realities of the time.
Awesome. What do you think is the most memorable part about Father Flanagan's legacy?
For me, the most memorable part is the influence he had on the entire world. So I'm here in Omaha. I'm kind of aware of his influence here, but it wasn't until I saw the film and I started getting involved with the tribunal for the canonization process that I realized he had an effect on all the world and how the entire world sees care for children.
It's amazing to me how pocketed some of these things can be. My husband, by chance, was in Omaha just a few weeks ago, and he was actually kind of joking with me that there was a town called Boys Town, and I'm like, that's an interesting name for a town, but then there's Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, so what do I know? And then I got called about this project, and they just said Omaha, and it was only when I started kind of reading more about it that I was like, the town is called Boys Town because Boys Town is a whole thing, and I had absolutely no idea. And I actually have family who's from Nebraska, from Wahoo, so not even far away. Had absolutely no idea. So it was really interesting to learn and to take it in and kind of collect more of that piece of American Catholic history.
Yeah.
What do you think, if you know, what do you think has been the most interesting part of the canonization process? Maybe something that people aren't used to hearing or knowing about the process itself.
Yeah, so it's a rarefied process, especially here in the United States, because we're just kind of getting to that point in the United States where some of the early founders, early missionaries are becoming saints. So it was difficult to try to figure out the process, but what I learned in the process is the church is remarkably specific and clear about the entire process. It's not willy-nilly. You literally have to cross all the T's and dot the I's, and as the notary for the tribunal, that was actually my job, was to make sure everything was in place.
I think some people can be surprised at how much time it takes. I think some people sort of get their, I don't know how to put it, but almost like a cult fandom for certain potential saints.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I want it so bad. And then you see it go so quickly for certain ones, like Blessed Carlo Acutis.
Yes.
And then there are other ones that it takes a while. And I think people are not used to that. The fact that it's a process and it's not always overnight or very quickly or easily proven. You have to exhaust every potential outcome for a proposed miracle before you can sort of say, okay, now let's move forward to the next step.
And for someone like a Father Flanagan who had a long career and a long life and many, many writings, you have to go through everything.
And the more they have, the longer it takes to go through it, right?
Exactly.
All right, and this is my last question. What do you personally hope is accomplished with this movie?
My hope and prayer is that Catholics first come to understand this great story and the influence that Father Flanagan had on the Catholic Church in the United States, but again, on the entire world. And my hope is that it'll inspire other people to learn how to love in the way that Father Flanagan loved.
That's beautiful. I am super happy to see movies like this come out from a my personal standpoint in space on the internet as uncatechized Catholic. I love having a balanced approach to how you sort of learn about church history and church teachings and saints and things like that. And so I value written and TV or entertainment-based learning opportunities. And so I'm personally a huge fan of seeing movies like this coming out because I can point to them and be like, look, watch, learn. I think it's wonderful. And so I sincerely hope people learn more about Father Flanagan and that the church as a whole can sort of gain more awareness of different stories of people that otherwise they may not have heard of before.
Amen.
Thanks for talking to me today.
My pleasure, Desiree. Take care.
You too. Hi, I'm Desiree Cifuentes, online as Uncatechized Catholic, and I'm here today with Father Ryan Lewis. How are you?
Great. So happy to be with you.
Awesome. I'm excited to see you.
Thank you.
So you've had some extensive involvement with the film and with some of the behind-the-scenes things. I'm curious what you want people to know about Boys Town, the actual place.
Yeah, Boys Town is a very well-known institution across our nation and even worldwide because of the great work it does, helping young people who are struggling in life. And of course, the founder, Father Flanagan, was an exemplary man and priest, and he had this incredible vision. And so many know about the institution of Boys Town and hold it in very high regard. We want more people now to know about the inspirational man who had the creative and very forward-thinking vision to create a place as unique as Boys Town.
That's so awesome. I had heard from my husband about the place Boys Town, but I had not known about the Father Flanagan story or the connection until much more recently.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a learning process for me as well.
Yeah.
What is most memorable to you about Father Flanagan's legacy?
For me, Father Flanagan is a huge inspiration. A couple of reasons. I grew up right here in Omaha, Nebraska, so I knew Boys Town well and knew Father Flanagan well. And then I had a vocation to become a Catholic priest myself, and I'm a priest for the Archdiocese of Omaha, as was Father Flanagan.
Right.
And so pretty natural that he'd be a great person to look up to. And then when we opened his cause for canonization back in 2012, I was appointed by the Archbishop to be his delegate for the cause. And really the first, or what we call the diocesan phase of a new cause when it gets opened, is to really delve into the life of the person, historically and just everything about his life. And so that afforded me an opportunity to get to know Father on a much deeper level as we interviewed people who knew him or people who knew him. He died in 1948. but to really see what an exemplary priest he was and how faithfully he lived out his priestly life. And from that came the fruit of Boys Town. And again, a one-of-a-kind institution, an institution for helping children that was really ahead of its time in many, many ways, and an institution that has perdured to this day. Father died in 1948, but as he said, the good work of Boys Town will continue because it's not my work, it's God's work.
That's beautiful. And it actually feeds quite nicely into the next question that I was going to ask you is, what do you think is maybe the most peculiar part of the canonization process itself?
The most interesting part to me was just going into having to really look at his life with a critical eye. A lot of the stuff that we were asked to really dig into is to try to see, was there anything about his life that wasn't saintly, that was less than saintly, any vices that he had in his life, bad habits. And what was amazing is to really see that there was nothing. We asked very specific questions, and everyone said quite the opposite. Father was always very faithful to his prayers, for example, never used foul language, never yelled at the boys, and always was just this wonderful model priest. And so we were kind of trying to find stuff that might say that he wasn't a saint,
Right.
and there was just nothing, but quite the opposite. Everything pointed to the fact that this man lived a very holy and a very saintly life. It also told me that as a priest, I've got a long way to go.
Yeah, right?
I'm no Father Flanagan.
I was looking up the necessary qualifications to be a saint in my own studies, and that quality of needing to have lived a life of extraordinary holiness. Was peculiar to me because, in theory, you can have some interaction with somebody who has sort of gone on to their eternal reward, and perhaps it's even substantial enough to investigate. But that's a real sticking point where if the time that you were here isn't reflective of the place that you're likely to be rewarded with when
Yes.
you move on, that's an automatic no. And so these people are not only incredible for their canonization or their ultimate recognition, but also even if they never get there, just the life that they lived
Yep.
to be investigated in and of itself is an honor.
The other thing that I might point out, the church is often thought of as being very hierarchical and top-down. A canonization process typically starts, and it certainly did in this case, as a grassroots effort. The people in and around Boys Town, in and around Omaha, started that League Society of Devotion to Father Flanagan, and that's existed for years. And they've been saying from the ground up, we think Father Flanagan is a saint, not just because of the great work of Boys Town that continues, but just the way that he lived his life. And Boys Town is so strong and so solid and perdures to this day because it was built on such a, they would say, saintly foundation. And so they, for years, have been asking the Archbishop. And in 2012, Archbishop George Lucas thought it was, the time was finally right, and he opened the cause. And it's just been a great experience ever since. And most recently, in the last couple of years, the process of putting this wonderful film together, we hope it's going to really give an even broader audience a great insight, a great look into Father's life.
That's amazing. I think I actually heard from Deacon Omar that there was quite a lot of writing from Father Flanagan to look into.
There sure
Do you
was.
think that some of that will become available in like a synthesized book format for the laity to enjoy?
I think that's a brilliant idea. I don't know of any specific plans in that regard, but yeah, he wrote quite a lot, which meant there was a lot to get through in terms of, we looked through everything, again, to make sure we were very, very thorough. The Vatican demands that, and that was part of the process. But it was very edifying to me. The more we dug, the more I became convinced of Father's holiness, and I hope the Vatican and the Catholic Church sees fit to lift him up. And that's really dependent on God. We need miracles for that to happen, for those next steps to take place. But this movie might play a great role in that as well. As more people get to know him, more people will pray to him.
Certainly.
From prayer comes potential miracles and possible miracles. And
Of course, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Father Ryan,
You're
for
most
your time.
welcome.
It was really good talking to you.
very nice to talk to you. Very nice to meet you.
You too. Hi, I'm Desiree Cifuentes, online as Uncatechized Catholic, and today I am here with Steve Wolf. He wears many hats for the Father Flanagan project, the many projects, the canonization, the movie, and so on. So Steve, would you please tell us a little bit about who you are and what drew you to the project?
Sure. Well, I think the real seed of the involvement is the fact that I'm a Boys Town alumni. I graduated from Boys Town in 1980. Certainly an experience that changed my life for the better. As time wore on, there was kind of a groundswell of a feeling among the alumni that we felt that Father was a saint to us and so many, and somebody that the church should hold up as a canonized saint. And so that effort got started, and I became involved in that. And to the point now where I help actually assist the postulator. I'm a vice postulator. So I help prepare cases for alleged miracles and help provide updates to the dicastery for the cause of the saints at the Vatican. And then part of the thing for the mission of the Father Flanagan League, which I'm also board director with that, which we're the actors in this cause. But we really felt like we needed to do more to introduce Father Flanagan to people that don't know him and remind people that may be familiar with him or at least familiar with his mission work of Boys Town, that he might actually be a great intercessor with their prayers, which in turn would lead to miracles for his canonization and certainly improve the lives of the people receiving the miracles. So this project is an extremely important part of our mission work to hold his example up to the world and to inspire people to prayer and leading great holy lives.
That's amazing. You certainly are the perfect person, I think, sort of at that intersection of so many different things that make you uniquely, wonderfully situated for this particular project. I'm really thankful for you sharing all of that with me today, and I certainly hope that the film accomplishes everything you've said and much more.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm glad you're interested. Thank you.
I'm Desiree Cifuentes with Uncatechized Catholic, here with Jonathan Roumie.
Hello.
It is so nice to talk to you.
Nice to be here.
I was curious what your catechetical journey was as a Catholic, if it was always rock solid for you, if there was a big moment for you where it took off. Just tell me all about that.
So I came to the Catholic faith specifically when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And then I made my first communion. And that was, I think, the first big, leap into the faith in a substantial way. And it didn't feel too dissimilar to what I was previously accustomed to, which was orthodoxy. I think my faith continued with me throughout my life in a way that was slow growing, but existent. The older I got, the more I depended on the Lord and my faith. But it wasn't until I had a deeper conversion about 6 years ago that everything really kind of crystallized for me. And it became clear that my faith became part and parcel with my identity and my self-expression. And so having that and being comfortable with that, and even then from that moment through to today even, it grows more and more each day. And so where I was in 2020, for instance, wasn't where I was in 2018, which wasn't even close to where I was in 2017, if that makes sense. So it feels like it's growing exponentially now, in ways that I can only ascribe to the Holy Spirit.
That's amazing. If you don't mind me asking, what was that more profound conversion moment for you?
I had a deeper surrender to God. I had surrendered my career and my entire life in a way that I hadn't before, and it was out of desperate circumstances that this moment of surrender came. I was broke and I was out of food, and I didn't know that I even belonged in the business anymore, and so I just kind of was on my knees and expurgating, vocally in prayer, all the things that I thought I knew and realized I didn't know about myself and about my life and about my career, and basically saying to God that, I got to that place for some reason, and now I needed him to tell me why and to show me how I was going to get out of it. And he did that very day. And I was blessed with this financial miracle, which I kind of documented in this documentary that I filmed over a couple of years called Jonathan and Jesus. And it was a very visceral, dynamic lesson that I had to learn in real time, and one that shifted my consciousness forever. And 3 months later, I booked The Chosen, and that changed my life, and continues to in so many ways, and has led me to all these other things, like meeting the Pope a couple of times, and just these crazy adventures where I'm like, okay, I'm just here to serve. I'm here. I'm trying to aspire to Father Flanagan's heart of servitude, and that's my goal, is to just serve by whatever means the Lord has intended for me to serve him.
I think that's profound, and it's good to hear on a personal note. I talk to people about my own faith experience, and I always talk about how I had sort of an initial conversion and then a secondary conversion, and that initial one was in my youth, sort of the first real awareness that there's something that matters here, and then the second one was a similar sort of dark night of the soul moment where I'm sobbing in prayer, and then after giving it all over and saying, just tell me, there it was, and there it is, and it's that same, very similar, honestly, trajectory.
There's something to expressing vocally the deepest needs of the heart, the deepest desires of the soul. I think when it's in here, it doesn't happen out here. God spoke everything into existence. It was through the Word. It was spoken. And I think by keeping it in the mind, we prevent ourselves from access to grace, because I think there's this conscious confirmation of, this is what I'm asking for, this is what I believe, and this is what I need. Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock on the door. So it's like all of that comes out when you're vocally, audibly, I think, expressing that. So I've often thought there's something to the act of audible expression that is different from just asking for it and thinking about it in your head, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's part and parcel for the fact that we're body-soul composites. You know, the sacraments aren't just these spiritual endowments we get. There's a tangible connection and reaction that we have. And even the things that you're saying, seek and you will find, knock on the door, all of that, that requires a physical action on our part. It's the difference between praying where you are and praying in adoration. There's just something about physically moving or acting and involving that corporal experience with the spiritual experience that's honest and true to what you were created to be and who you were created to be and who you are. So I agree with you on that. But you talked about how you had this moment in prayer of, you know, what do I do, where do I go? And then everything sort of took off for you career-wise. In my lap, I have a not short list of many different things that you're doing. Can you talk about what that is like, doing all of the things? I imagine what you're, you know, from what you've said, it sort of feels like, you know, just lead me, Lord, and I will go. But what is that like to go from 0 to 100?
Be careful what you pray for. When you ask him to show you what he wants from you, and you mean it, he will. But you also have to know where your physical limits are. And so I'm starting to learn where my physical limits are. And I pray constantly for more strength. Funny thing, I forget who I heard this from. It might have been in another context with another actionable verb from a different saint. I feel like it was Mother Teresa, but it may not have been. But if you ask for patience, you will be tested with more things. If you ask for strength, I think more will be put on your shoulders. Like, you want more strength? You want more strength? Okay, good. Well, now you can handle more. I'm like, oh, what should I have asked for instead?
I think people pray for humility, expecting the supernatural infusion of humility and not just more and more opportunities to humble yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in asking for strength and peace, he's humbled me in the process by showing me that, like, my strength is not my own.
It's very interesting. We have a lot in common, but the final main question that I have for you here is, I talk a lot to people who are concerned with raising their children in the faith. A lot of people who I speak to weren't necessarily raised all that well in the faith themselves, and so they're concerned about, what do I do? What resources do I use? How do I respond to this, that, or the other thing? And I hear a lot from people who worry about their children who want to grow up and become influencers or to work in some sort of online space or in music or in acting, because the reputations of those fields are not so great. So what words of advice or thoughts would you impart to people who are concerned about that for their children or even for themselves?
Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and what God wants for you, not what you want for you. I think that was how I approached my career, is that I sought a career with what I wanted for me, knowing God gave me some talents so that I must have free rein on what I should be doing, when in reality it wasn't what he wanted. It wasn't the level of submission that he needed from me to be able to allow me to actually succeed or have some success in the field with the gifts that he gave me. And when he did that, it was because I had submitted to glorifying him and surrendering to him. It was because that's what he wanted. Like, I'd never even married my faith and my career publicly in a way before. I never intended to do that. I always intended to keep that separate. He had other plans, and once I surrendered to his plan for my career, that's when I actually saw my career taking off. And so I think that has to be the prayer. Show me, Lord, what you want from me, not what I want for me. And he will.
That's brilliant. Awesome. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.